Welcome friends to another r/I don't work here lady video. I know you don't work here, but I do, and if you want to help support me, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And our first story of the day is by Lucky the Lurker. Karen mistakes me for a bank employee, proceeds to attempt to rob the bank and gets arrested. Background: about 20 years ago, I worked for a company that made software for banks and credit unions. Two smaller regional banks merged, and we were called in to upgrade all the branches for the same version of software and to point the network to the new consolidated bank. This happens after hours so as to not interfere with day-to-day operations. The whole process took several hours on site at each branch, so we were sure we would have plenty of time to roll things back if anything went wrong, and we started a few hours before the bank closed. This would give us time to fix anything before the bank opened the next day. The process started with a meeting to go over the plan for the branch, so the bank staff, some of who would be helping with the process because my team doesn't have complete access to the bank systems. This is a small bank. There's 4 offices, a conference room, and space for like 5 tellers up front. It turned out that it was payday for some larger employer or something. But just as I started my meeting with the branch manager, the 2 staff from my company, and the 2 bank employees who would be opening the bank the following day, the bank starts to get really busy. The meeting lasts about 30 minutes, and all the while the line in waiting area is filling up. So I rush through the details for the bank manager and release him, then the 2 opening staff. I leave the details for my team for last. My team knew the process, they just needed to know what computers to start on first. Anyway, I dismiss the bank staff, and they go to help the rush up front, and I continue my meeting with my team, then send them out to get some food since it looks like the bank might not close on time anyway. I head over to the bank manager's office, and immediately a woman ducks under the rope line and makes straight for the office and tries to follow me inside. I didn't see her step out of line, so I at first thought maybe she was a bank employee. As soon as I turned around, she said something like, "It's about darn time, I've been waiting for half an hour." This was BS because we started the meeting at 4:30 and it wasn't even 5 yet. I tried to tell her she was mistaken. I don't work at the bank, but she cut me off, not even paying attention to what I was saying. She plopped herself down in one of the chairs and said, "I need to make a withdrawal." I replied, "Sorry, I can't help you with that. You'll need to wait in line." She says, "No, I've already waited for an hour. I know you can do it, you've done it before." She slaps her ID card and bank card on the desk and says, "Just open the darn drawer and give me $2,000. I say, "I can't, I couldn't even finish explaining I don't work there. She says, "BS, you've done it before, give me $2,000. I say, "I can't." And she says, "That's it." At this point, she's raised her voice and is now standing. I assumed she was going to leave, and I went to open the door, but she pushed me back and yelled, "I'm not leaving this office until you give me $2,000. She then picked up a screwdriver out of the toolkit sitting on the desk and starts prying at the desk drawer. I push her back and she swings at me with the screwdriver. I step back, but she scratches my arm, tearing my shirt, and goes back to prying at the drawer. I've had it at this point. I'm thinking she's nuts and I need to do something. I look out the office and it looks like everyone's busy and maybe they didn't notice her yelling. It looks like she's not making any progress on the desk, it's too sturdy. I try a calmer approach and try to get her attention. She stops for a moment and looks at me like she forgot I was there and says, "Are you going to get me my money or what?" I say, "I'm not an employee of the bank." She says, "BS, you were just in the meeting with the other employees." I say, "Yes, but..." "Then get me my money or get out of my way," she interrupted before pushing me again. I finally had it. I looked out the window and it seemed like all the bank employees were calm and quiet. I thought, screw it if I'm just going to stand here and watch her rob the bank. She was a big woman, but I played hockey against bigger, so even if she had a few pounds on me, I was pretty sure I could at least slow her down. I took a step back, brought my shoulder down, and then with a step and a short lunge, I shoulder checked her into the brick wall behind her. She smacked her head on the wall, gave a short whoomph as I knocked the wind out of her, and then she collapsed to the floor unconscious. I watched her suspiciously for a moment thinking that was easier than I thought. Why didn't I do that earlier? Then I thought, maybe I hurt her, so I knelt down to check on her, and she was breathing. I shouldn't move her. The screwdriver flew across the office, so I just stepped over her and walked out into the bank. About that time, I heard sirens. Lots of them. A short while later, some police came into the bank. Having just assaulted a woman, leaving her unconscious, I put my hands up. The police walked over, looked at me, and then walked into the office. I turned around, and the bank staff were pointing at the office where I just left. Evidently, they triggered the silent alarm as soon as she yelled at me to give her money. They moved the other customers to the conference room, and we're following protocols to comply and not interfere. The end result was she woke up to being handcuffed. She was seen by an EMT briefly before being arrested for armed robbery, kidnapping, and assault. The screwdriver from the toolkit was taken as evidence, and we teased my tech for the next few years. "You get your screwdriver back yet?" She came in for $2,000 and left with 5 to 10. She spent 4 years in prison. As an assault victim in that state, they notified me when she got out. Why do I just picture like Chief Wiggum walking into the bank office like, "Well, that's my job done." Just slap some cuffs on the Karen, holler out of there. "Good job, boys." If you were held up by Karen in this office at screwdriver point, would you charge them? Would you just comply with them? Would you try and get out of there as quickly as you could? Let me know what you would do in the comments down below. Our next story is by Foxfire Inferno. I don't work here. So what? I'm in the candy aisle at the Mart of Walls, in a region of the USA I like to call Redneckistan, looking for something for my wife. Snickers brownie squares. When I feel something whack the back of my leg. Not all that hard, but definitely an attention getter. I turn and see an old lady using a cane with which she's just smacked me. She looked to be short already and hunched over so far Quasimodo would have felt sympathy. I don't know if she'd been trying to get my attention previously or not. I was off in my own little daydream world. I inhale to start my response, but she's already flapping her dentures. She says, "Get me a bag of M&Ms. She points upwards and back. We were a few feet past the M&M rack. I say, "I don't work here." Normally I'd start with a sorry, but being whacked in the leg didn't predispose me to politeness. For the record, I'm wearing blue jeans and a freaking Hawaiian shirt, so I have no idea how this crazy old bat thinks I work there. Turns out, she says, "No crap, now get me my goddarn M&Ms. Yeah, this is why I'm not so sure it fits this sub. She was fully aware that I didn't work there, she just didn't give 2 squirts of pee. So at this point, I'm not pretending to even be polite, and since she opened the vulgarity floodgates, I went with the flow. I said, "Why the heck should I?" She said, "Because I asked you to." I say, "You didn't ask me to do anything. You told me to do it. If you'd have asked first, I'd probably have done it. But since you didn't, screw it." This is true, by the way. I'm a big fan of reciprocal kindness. Ask me politely to do something. If it's not too absurd, I'll probably do it. Rudely bark orders at me, and I won't so much as fart for your benefit. She emits this over-exaggerated eye-rolling sigh you'd expect to be followed with a "kids today." I'm 50 bloody years old and it's obvious. My beard's half gray and my hairline's not so much receding as in full retreat. I've gotten senior discounts without asking for them. So, in the most insincere voice I can imagine, she continues, "Would you please get me a bag of M&Ms? You'd think she was like Mr. Mxyzptlk and saying please would send her back to the 5th dimension. Me, after briefly looking like I was considering it, say, no. I'm half expecting to see smoke pouring out of her ears after that, the way her wrinkly little face contorted. She looked like a freaking Shar-Pei. I think I saw crop circles in her forehead. She says, "What the freak? You said if I asked, you'd do it." I said if you asked first, I would have done it. You didn't ask first. You ordered first. You asked second. So you done freaked that up already. Get your own freaking candy. She says I can't reach that high. Me making a buzzer sound say, survey says, not my problem. With that, I pivot on my heel, grab my cart, and leave while she's informing me that my mother was a dog and my parents weren't married. I do the rest of my shopping and loop back around to get the Snickers later, and she was gone and good freaking riddance. It occurred to me on the drive home that I probably set up some poor grocery associate for an awful experience though. One of the comments on this post says, "She has a cane, she should have just knocked them all off the shelf." And honestly, that would fit her character pretty well. If she doesn't care half as much as she claims she doesn't, then go ahead and just knock them all off the shelf. Get what you need, grumpy old lady, and leave the rest for the poor employees to clean up. Our next story is by Fan Hasek. I am a truck driver. Stopped for coffee in Montana, wore a mask in the truck shop because I still do when inside, even though nobody else does. Older woman rushes up to me as I stir my coffee and declares, "The ladies' restroom is a disgrace." I replied, "Well, that's ladies for you. They just can't keep things tidy." She gawped and said, "Aren't you going to clean it?" And I said, "No, I don't give a care if the women's restroom's dirty." She went quite red, stared some more, and rushed off to the manager, who had to tell her twice that I didn't work there. Wearing a mask equals working at the business now, I guess? I guess the true downfall for OP in the story was leading them along in the first go, but OP was just trying to crack a joke, not trying to humor a Karen, although this Karen was more like a fly and not an alligator, so it wasn't too bad. This next story is by Green Thumb 28. Nope. I used to work for a large pet store chain for over 3 years. I got to know the customers well, but when a new store manager showed up, he destroyed the store, and I was one of the first to jump ship after he gave a "my way or the highway" speech. Shortly after I quit, I needed to go to that store for live insects, food for my lizard, and they were literally the only store in town that carried live. I was walking down to the back to pick them up, looking at the disastrous state of the store and multiple people looking for help, when one regular customer who used to annoy the crap out of me pointed at me at least 20 feet away and yelled, "You work here?" I yelled back, "Nope," and kept walking. Was the best feeling ever. All I gotta say about this story is the fastest way to increase the turnover rate of your company is to bring in a new and bad manager who knows nothing or just operates things badly. Just imagine wherever you work, a new manager comes in and they go, "Alright guys, it's gonna be my way or the highway." Well, I'm about to be hitting the highway with a bunch of copies of my resume. And our final story of the day is by Devil Dogs Girl. Realization that employees can go shopping in their places of work. So a bit of background, for my first job, I, 18-year-old female at the time, worked in the electronics section at Sears with a dress code that consisted of a dark blue polo shirt and khaki pants. I've been confused for an employee multiple times in multiple different stores since, and thankfully every time has been pleasant overall, but the first time I was ever mistaken always stuck with me. A friend of mine was moving into her first apartment and had asked me on a day off to help her buy items she needed as she didn't have her own car at that point. We drove around town a bit before we ended up at Sears, as I could get her a discount and I knew the layout of the store like the back of my hand. I was in a bright yellow and black paisley print blouse, skinny jeans, and heeled black boots. Very much not dress code, and even if it had been, my store had 2 stories with clothing items downstairs and appliances, mattresses, electronics, and auto upstairs. Point of this being, no employee on the second floor in their right mind would be wearing what I was to haul around heavy merchandise. So back to the story, my friend and I are upstairs looking at small appliances, microwaves, coffee makers, etc., and I'm frankly going more in depth than I probably needed to over which items to get and why. What complaints I've heard, which items get returned more, which brands have higher reviews or better customer service, if she needs to contact them, and so on. I wanted to make sure whatever we got she would enjoy and wouldn't come back to bite me on the rear. About halfway through my rant, I pieced together that 2 much older women have been following us through this section, and I turned to let them know that if they need someone to help them, that the appliance desk is only a couple seconds walk further down the main aisleway, and someone's always there. They say they're fine, but continue to hover around us. At this point, I'm getting concerned and unsettled. My mom loves showing me articles of young teens being taken off the street as a ploy to prevent me from trying to go wild in my teens, so this whole setup had me unnerved to say the least, especially when added to the fact that the small appliances were technically part of the appliance section, but were separated by a wall and no one on shift could see us being followed around. We pick a coffee maker and are jokingly debating if she needs something else, honestly can't remember what it was, maybe a waffle iron, when she nods her head towards the way we came, and I turn to see the 2 women still following us. I tell them again if they need help, go to the appliance desk, and actually had to look down at my outfit when they assured me no one else in my section would be as helpful as I am. I very quickly tried explaining I do technically work there, but I work in electronics and I'm not on the clock. One of the women still sweetly insisted that it's no trouble and they'll wait for me. The other woman seemed horrified before telling me she's so sorry and dragged her friend away. I'm gonna guess that they weren't the sharpest tools in the shed. Even when they were saying that they didn't work there that day, they weren't on the clock, they must have thought like, oh, she must be on a break. It's like, no lady, I don't work in a bright yellow and black paisley print blouse. Go to the appliance desk. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.